everyone, and welcome to Bookish Babbles, the podcast where we reread our favorite books and chat about them. I'm your host, Alyson, and without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to episode 16 of Bookish Babbles. Today we are talking about chapters 13 to 15 of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Woo! We are deep into the games. A lot of exciting things are happening, but before we get to that, there were just some things I wanted to mention. So I think I've mentioned this series on a podcast, but for those who don't know, I love the Shadowhunters books by Cassandra Clare. It is one of my top 5 favorite series of all time. I love the Infernal Device is probably my favorite, but the sequel series to that one, The Last Hours, could be my favorite depending on how Chain of Thorns ends. And a few days ago, or I don't know how long it's been, but they finally revealed the cover for Chain of Thorns, which is the last book in that series. And if you're a fan of those books and you haven't seen it yet, oh my god, go see it. It might be my new favorite cover. My current favorite being Chain of Gold, because 1, that's beautiful, and 2, it has Cordelia, one of my favorite characters in that whole series, on it. But holy crap, the cover for Chain of Thorns is beautiful, and another reason I need this book in my hands now. When does it come out? In November? I can't wait that long! Anyway, so yeah, I'll link to the Instagram post in the show notes so you guys can go see it if you haven't seen it yet. How many times can I say seen it? I don't know. And normally I don't talk about news that goes on in the world, but this is happening in the book world that's very relevant that I think you guys should know. So book bans are not a new thing. They've been happening all throughout history, but usually they happen within schools and libraries. But this is the first time I've heard of someone attempting a book ban through a bookstore, like a private corporation, like Barnes & Noble. And specifically, a Virginia legislator is suing Barnes & Noble, and they specifically from selling chew books to minors because of, obscenities or whatever. And those 2 books specifically are A Court of Mist and Fury, which is book 2 in a series by Sarah J. Maas. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's a very popular series. And the other one being Genderqueer, which is an illustrated memoir by Maya Kobabe. I don't think I pronounced their last name correctly, and I'm really sorry about that. But yeah. Genderqueer, I think it's obvious why this particular legislator would want to ban that one, but A Court of Mist and Fury, I'm very confused about that. I get it. There are a few spicy scenes, but it's still very tame compared to other books. So if you guys have not read either of these books and you're interested in reading them, you live in the United States and you are able to, I encourage you to go buy them, because I hate book bans and I detest anyone who tries to ban a book. So there's that. In lighter news, the Kenobi series is coming out very soon, and I'm so excited. I love Star Wars. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. When I was a kid when the prequels were coming out, Ewan McGregor is my Obi-Wan. I'm so excited. And also in other lighter news, for those who've seen the movie Jaws, you know that scene where the 2 kids have the fake fin and everyone's like, "Oh no, the shark's here, psych, it's just a fake." The kid who says, "He made me do it," is now the police chief of Martha's Vineyard, where the movie was filmed. I just find that really funny. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled content. So in terms of where we are in the Hunger Games, last week Katniss and Peeta have a deep talk before going into the arena, and then he seemingly betrays her by joining the careers, Nearly half the tributes die within the first day. Pretty much all of them unnamed kids we don't know or particularly care about. Katniss nearly dies from dehydration, and just when it looks like she's about to catch a break, a wall of fire is coming at her. This week, Katniss is nearly killed by said wall of fire. She gets cornered in a tree by the careers and drops a tracker jacker nest on them. Peeta saves her life? ? And Katniss gets a new ally. And with that being said, let's dive into chapter 13. So this chapter opens right where the last one left off. Giant wall of fire coming at Katniss. Animals are running away, so she scrambles to get out of the tree, unstraps herself, and has to carry everything in her sleeping bag since there obviously isn't any time to properly pack anything. In no time, she's nearly surrounded by smoke and flames, so she does her best to follow all the animals also fleeing since they have better instincts than hers. And it's obvious that the fire isn't natural. This wasn't a campfire gone wrong. This fire is clearly created by game makers. Things must have been quiet so far that day, and, if there isn't enough violence during the day, the capital citizens start complaining, and we can't have that. Gotta keep the population entertained and content so that, they're distracted and less likely to notice anything shady Snow people are doing. Anyway, another reason the game makers would have decided to make this fire is that they're hoping to force some tributes near each other so that they will fight, specifically toward their career pack usually, and it's an old but effective strategy that the game makers use. So the tail end of Katniss's coat catches on fire, so she has to rip it off and stomp it out, but she can't ditch it since, nights are still pretty cold and slightly scorched coat is better than no coat. Then she takes cover under a stone outcropping just as she starts to vomit, losing whatever she has left in her stomach. She gives herself a minute to rest and organize her supplies, then ponders about what to do next. She's lost the animals she had been following. When she starts formulating a plan on how to get behind the fire line and try to avoid the careers, a fireball comes at her. Time starts to lose meaning as Katniss dodges fireball after fireball. All she can do is just keep dodging and moving. She knows from watching years of Hunger Games that certain areas of the arenas are rigged for certain attacks, so if she can get out of range, then she can escape the fire. She could also be running straight into another trap, but no time to worry about that at the moment. At some point, a fireball singes off 6 inches of her hair. She's distracted by this for just a moment, and she's not quite fast enough to avoid the next fireball. It skids across her right calf, and she has to roll her leg across the ground to stop the worst of it. But she's still obviously in a lot of pain. Katniss wonders if the fun nickname Cinna had given her, the girl who was on fire, may have brought this on for her specifically, though Cinna didn't foresee this happening, because, unlike the game makers, he's not a cruel person and wouldn't think his costume could inspire this. Then the attack stops. So, good news, the game makers don't want her dead yet. Yay! Bad news, if they stop firing at her, that means the other tributes must be nearby. She would drag herself up to a tree for cover, but there's still smoke thick enough to kill her, so she stumbles over to the pool of water, and the burns on her hands, feels relief as soon as she puts them in. Also, her flame nail polish is starting to chip off, so that didn't last long. Katniss tries to remember what she knows about burns and how to treat them. She also remembers the time that a burn victim was brought to her house for her mother to treat, and Katniss ran away to spend the rest of the day hunting. To be fair, I would react in the same way. And she also remembers on that day that Prim, who is scared of her own shadow, had stayed and helped. According to Mrs. Everdeen, healers are born, they're not made. And Prim is clearly one. Then Katniss does remember that if the burn was really severe, then she wouldn't even be able to feel any pain, because at that point, all the nerves would be destroyed. So she's able to get her calf in the water and soak it, and it does give her some relief. She rests for a bit, keeps soaking her leg, drinks some water, and contemplates what to do next. Sees some plants with edible roots, eats those along with the last of her rabbit meat, and there's a wonderful set of lines toward the bottom of page 180. I lean back on my pack, overcome with drowsiness. If the careers want me, let them find me, I think, before drifting into a stupor. Let them find me. And find me they do! Ask and you shall receive, Katniss. Good thing that she's already packed to go. That's apparently a key strategy for surviving the games. Always be ready to go at any second. Luckily, the careers also seem to be affected by the fire since they're not running as fast as they normally can, so it helps Katniss get a little bit of a head start, but her leg is also making it hard. So Katniss does the only thing she can do. She picks a high tree and starts climbing. The careers gather around the base of the tree, excited, since it looks like, she's an easy kill that's just right above them. Though Peeta's internal monologue is probably something like shit, fuck, why? And for a moment, Katniss thinks that this could be the end, but then she remembers that she's smaller than all the careers, and there's a reason she's the one who can climb up high trees and not Gale. Then toward the bottom of page 181, there's this wonderful exchange between Katniss and the careers. Now I smile. How's everything with you? I call down cheerfully. This takes them aback, but I know the crowd will love it. Well enough, says the boy from District 2. Yourself? It's a bit warm for my taste, I say. I can almost hear laughter from the Capitol. The air's better up here. Why don't you come on up? I think I will, says the same boy. I love sassy Katniss. So Glimmer then offers Cato the bow and arrows, which naturally angers Katniss since, those should be hers. And angry at that Peeta, made her miss her chance to get them during the bloodbath. And speaking of Peeta, he's intentionally not looking at her. Again, his internal monologue is like, shit, how do I get out of this shit? Fuck, damn. Cato refuses the bow, saying he'll just use his sword. Starts climbing, and Katniss climbs higher too. Soon she hears a branch snap, and Cato falls, hits the ground hard. For a moment, she hopes that, when he fell, he broke his neck, but no such luck. Things can never be that easy for us. Katniss even swears when he stands back up. Then Glimmer tries scaling the tree, but she feels the branch start to crack under her, and unlike Cato, she has the sense to climb down. She then tries shooting Katniss, but it's clear she's incompetent with a bow. One of the arrows gets lodged in a tree near Katniss, so she takes it out and waves it above her head to mock them, but also hangs on to it just in case she gets the chance to use it. And now the careers are butthurt and grumble, trying to figure out what to do now, because they can't exactly back out since they'd be seen as weak by the audience. And then Peeta tells them that they should just leave Katniss alone for now, since she can't exactly go anywhere, and they can deal with her in the morning. Katniss starts to get ready for bed, then sees something in one of the nearby trees, and it looks like a pair of eyes. And who does the pair of eyes belong to? Well, I'll read you guys the last bit of the chapter to find out. I make her out, watching me silently from between the branches. Rue. How long has she been there? The whole time, probably? Still and unobserved as the action unfolded beneath her. Perhaps she headed up her tree shortly before I did, hearing the pack was so close. For a while we hold each other's gaze, then without even rustling a leaf, her little hand slides into the open and points to something above my head. What's Rue pointing at? Stay tuned to find out, because this is the end of the chapter, so we're going on a break. I mean, if you've read the book, you probably know. But when we come back, we'll talk about chapter 14. Hey guys, it's Alyson from a different point in time, and I'm here to bring you another random recommendation. So if you are anything like me, you love Star Wars, and you're really excited for the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and so I thought it would be a good idea to recommend my favorite Star Wars book, or one of my favorites. It's kind of hard to pick one, though I haven't read that many, but I have still read quite a few good ones. But anyway, so this is actually one of the first Star Wars books I ever read after a friend recommended it to me, and it is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, and so far, Claudia Gray is my favorite Star Wars author, and she also wrote a book called Master and Apprentice, which focuses on young Obi-Wan Kenobi and his master Qui-Gon, but I haven't read that one yet, so I can't recommend it. So instead, I'm recommending this one, so I'll read you guys the summary. The reign of the Galactic Empire has reached the outer rim planet of Jalukan, where aristocratic Thane Krell and rural villager Sienna Rhee bond over their love of flying. Enrolling at the Imperial Academy is nothing less than a dream come true for both of them. But Thane sours on the dream where he sees firsthand the horrific tactics the Empire uses to maintain its ironclad rule. Bitter and disillusioned, he joins the fledgling rebellion, putting Sienna in an unbearable position between her loyalty to the Empire and her love for the man she's known since childhood. Now on opposite sides of the war, will these friends turned foes ever find a way to be together, or will duty tear them and the galaxy apart? So a bit like star-crossed lovers, forbidden romance, and it is so good. Like, these characters are so well written, and I probably mispronounced her name, Sienna. She's the one who stays working for the Empire. Just having her perspective kind of humanizes some of the more everyday people in the Empire, and and she has such a complex inner turmoil from what I remember in the book. It's been a while since I've read it, but I'll probably need to reread it at some point, but it's still my favorite Star Wars book, and it's great because the story's pretty standalone, and it follows a lot of the events of the original trilogy, so you're used to the story, so it's a good way to ease into the Star Wars books if you love the movies and you want more content. And also watch the Clone Wars. I am a terrible person and a fake fan who did not watch the Clone Wars series for years, and I did. Now I'm on Rebels, and I love it. And I also have finally, and I've also read the Ahsoka novel because of Clone Wars. But anyway, yes, so Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, highly recommend. And with that being said, back to the episode. And we're back. So, what is this mysterious thing that Rue is pointing at over Katniss's head? Again, if you've read the book, I assume you already know the answer. It's a wasp's nest. And Katniss manages to keep calm and stay where she is, which is another reason as to why Katniss is braver than most, because if I was in her position, I would have jumped out of the tree and taken my chances with the careers. I have an irrational fear of bees. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. I'm scared of bees, but I can be rational since they're less likely to sting, since, once they do, they'll die. But a wasp? Nope, not messing around with them. Those motherfuckers can sting you multiple times and stay alive. I'm putting as much distance as I can between myself and those things. But of course, since this is the Hunger Games, they can't just be ordinary. Don't fuck with me and I won't fuck with you, wops. No, they're tracker jackers. Deadly capital mutations who were used during the war to attack the rebels. The venom creates illusions, drives you to madness, and enough can kill you. And they can and will hunt down anyone who disturbs their nest. Hence, tracker in their name. After the war, the capital destroyed all the tracker jacker nests near the city, but they kept the ones near the districts untouched because, gotta intimidate the districts at every opportunity. Anyway, given the fact that she's trapped and by morning the careers will formulate a plan to kill her, she has to do something. And it looks like the tracker jacker nest could be her best chance at fighting back. Her best move is to use her knife to saw the branch off. It's also a good idea to start sawing at the branch during the anthem, since it'll be dark and the careers won't be able to see very well nor hear what she's doing, because don't want to tip off the teenagers who are excited to do the murder as to what you're up to. So she climbs up to the branch so she can be ready to start sawing as soon as the anthem starts playing. When Katniss reaches the branch, she finds that her suspicion of tracker jackers was correct. She sees one, but it's subdued, probably due to the smoke. Then the anthem starts playing. There were no deaths to report for the day, so only the anthem is playing. She's 3/4 done sawing the branch and stops when the anthem does. If the tracker jackers are sedated, dropping them on the careers now might be useless. So she climbs down the branch she's sleeping on, and there's a surprise waiting for her. Her first sponsor gift, and it's medicine for her burns. Yay, thank you, Haymitch. When she treats her wounds, she goes to sleep. The next morning, Katniss is woken up by a bird. She drinks some water and eats a cracker and a strip of beef since there's nothing left in her stomach from the day before. Meanwhile, the careers and Peeta are all fast asleep on the ground below. Glimmer was supposed to be the one who kept watch, but she fell asleep. Good job, Glimmer. You had one job. What happens next is your fault. Okay, that's mean, but Glimmer's a fictional character, so I don't feel bad saying that. So now's the best time for Katniss to enact her plan. Now, before she does, Katniss calls out to Rue in a hushed whisper and tips her off to what she's about to do, and Rue manages to flee by leaping from tree to tree. But Katniss can't even see that, only hear the nearby trees rustle, which is really impressive for Rue. No wonder she got a 7 in her training score, but she deserves better. Anyway, so Katniss starts sawing and the rest of the branch, and she sees a tracker jacker. Good news is that it's still acting a bit subdued, but won't be for long, and the others will soon be out. And as soon as she starts sawing, she hears one buzzing, and it stabs her in the knee. Then she which just painful, because when I was a kid, I was once walking around barefoot, and I accidentally stepped on a bee, and as a result got stung, and it was painful. I can only imagine how painful these tracker jacker stings are. She cuts through the branch, and the nest bursts open as soon as it hits the ground. Then Katniss gets stung again in the cheek and the neck, but thankfully those are the only tracker jackers that identified her before the nest went down, and she removes the stingers that are in her. The careers, though, not so lucky. Pete and a few others drop everything and bolt. Glimmer and the girl from 4 aren't so lucky. They get multiple stings before they're even out of view. Glimmer calls to the others for help, but of course they don't turn around. The girl from 4 disappears behind some bushes. Glimmer falls to the ground, twitches for a bit, then goes still. The tracker jackers have all moved on, chasing the others. Katniss climbs down and starts going in the opposite direction of the careers. She finds the pool from earlier and submerges herself in it just in case any wasp follows her. And the effect of the venom is really strong. She's wobbly. She sees green liquid oozing from the places where she was stung. Gross. And then she remembers that Glimmer still has the bow and arrows, so she goes back for it before the hovercraft can come and take Glimmer's body with the weapon still attached to her. Katniss reaches Glimmer just as the cannon fires, signaling her death, and Katniss describes Glimmer as looking unrecognizable, features eradicated, her limbs 3 times their normal size, and Katniss also sees the green liquid coming out of her body too. Though I'm pretty sure the green liquid isn't real, like, the effect of the venom is just making Katniss see things. And either way, this has got to be horrifying for Glimmer's family to watch back home. Anyway, Katniss has to break Glimmer's fingers in order to get the bow out. Then when she tries to turn Glimmer's body over to get the arrows, it looks like Glimmer's flesh is disintegrating, though Katniss isn't sure if it's real or not. She hears another cannon, and soon a hovercraft appears. For a moment, Katniss worries it's for Glimmer, but instead it's there to collect the body for the girl from 4. Then Katniss yanks the sheath of arrows free, and then she hears footsteps and knows that the careers must be coming back. She tries to position an arrow to fire, but the effects are getting worse, and she sees 3 bows at once. And just like last time, I have to do a reading of the last bit of this chapter. It starts on page 193. I'm helpless as the first hunter crashes through the trees, spear lifted, poised to throw. The shock on Peeta's face makes no sense to me. I wait for the blow. Instead, his arm drops to his side. "What are you still doing here?" he hisses at me. I stare uncomprehendingly as a trickle of water drips off a sting under his ear. His whole body starts sparkling as if he's been dipped in dew. "Are you mad?" He's prodding me with the shaft of the spear now. "Get up! Get up!" I rise, but he's still pushing at me. What is going on? He shoves me away from him hard. "Run!" he screams. "Run!" Behind him, Cato slashes his way through the brush. He is sparkling wet too, and badly stung under one eye. I catch the gleam of sunlight on his sword and do as Peeta says, holding tightly to my bow and arrows, banging into trees that appear out of nowhere, tripping and falling as I try to keep my balance. Back past my pool and into unfamiliar woods. The world begins to bend in alarming ways. A butterfly balloons to the size of a house, then shatters into a million stars. Trees transform to blood and splash down over my boots. Ants begin to crawl out of the blisters on my hands, and I can't shake them free. They're climbing up my arms, my neck. Someone's screaming. A long, high-pitched scream that never breaks for breath. I have a vague idea it might be me. I trip and fall into a small pit lined with tiny orange bubbles that hum like the tracker jacker nest. Tucking my knees up to my chin, I wait for death. Sick and disoriented, I'm able to form only one thought. Peeta Malark has just saved my life. And then the ants bore into my eyes and I black out. Dun dun dun! Was all that real? Was it not real? That is a reoccurring theme throughout the whole series that as those of us know, becomes very, very relevant in Mockingjay, but we're not there yet. So, with all that being said, it's time for a break. When we come back, we will talk about Chapter 15. Hey guys, I'm back with another random recommendation. So, this one is a book that by a popular author, and I have talked about this book on the podcast before, but I want to officially recommend it. It is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who you guys know is obviously famous for writing The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six. So she's more known for like her recent historical fiction works, but this is one of her earlier like contemporary reads, which is really good and one of my favorites. A breathtaking love story about a woman unexpectedly forced to choose between the husband she has long thought dead and the fiancé who has finally brought her back to life. In her 20s, Emma Blair marries her high school sweetheart Jessie. They build a life for themselves far away from the expectations of their parents and the people of their hometown in Massachusetts. They travel the world together, Emma as a freelance writer, Jessie as a production assistant on nature documentaries, living life to the fullest and seizing every opportunity for adventure. On their first wedding anniversary, Jessie is on an assignment in the Aleutian Islands when his helicopter goes missing over the Pacific. Just like that, Jessie is gone forever. Emma quits her job and moves home in an effort to put her life back together. Years later, now in her 30s, Emma runs into an old friend, Sam, and finds herself falling in love again. When Emma and Sam get engaged, it feels like Emma's second chance at happiness. That is until Jessie is found. He's alive, and he's been trying to come home to her all these years. Emma now has a husband and a fiancé, but who is her one true love? And what does it even mean to love truly? Emma knows she has to listen to her heart. She's just not sure what it's saying. So yeah, it's basically the movie Castaway, but it is so good. I cried multiple times reading this book, and just proves that Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of the best authors working currently. Anyway, so One True Loves. Also one of the main settings in this book is a bookstore, so that was one of the main reasons I chose to pick it up originally when I read it. So anyway, with that all being said, back to the episode. Alright, we're back. So this chapter opens with Katniss having a series of nightmares due to the Tracker Jacker venom, since it's designed to target the places where fear lives in the brain, and that will sadly be very relevant later on in the series, but we're not there yet. We're not covering that emotional damage yet. Anyway, here are the wonderful things Katniss is seeing while she's dreaming. Watching Prim die, reliving her father's last moments, and feeling her own body ripped apart. Sounds like a great time. Katniss really needs therapy. Anyway, when she does wake up, she's lying down in a fetal position, and when she inspects her hands, she sees that there was no sign of ants attacking her, so that was an illusion brought on by the venom. She's in a shallow hole filled with old dead leaves and wonders how long she's been out for, possibly a day or two. Either way, she has no way of knowing who survived the Tracker Jacker attack or if any other tributes other than the careers, have died. She climbs out of the hole and thinks of the last conversation she had in the woods with Gale about how they could survive in the woods, and then for some reason starts thinking about Peeta, and this is when the Everlark shipper in me starts freaking out. But anyway, the main reason she's thinking about him right now is because she's not sure if he actually saved her life. Did it happen, or was it just another Tracker Jacker hallucination? Was Peeta genuinely trying to help her? Was he just playing up the lover boy angle for the cameras? Spoiler alert, he was being genuine. But to be fair to Katniss, I too was unsure of Peeta the first time I read this book. I don't think I fully started to trust Peeta until the cave scenes, but we'll get there. Then Katniss starts thinking about Gale and wonders what he thinks about this whole situation that she's in right now, then stops because she can't imagine Gale and Peeta coexisting well together, and she's right, they do not go well together. So she focuses on the positive. She has a bow and arrows, she has So she has to clean some dried blood off them, but no green slime, so that part was an illusion brought on by the Tracker Jacker venom. Doesn't matter though. Either way, she has the weapons. It changes her dynamic in the arena. She no longer has to run, hide, and take desperate measures. She can now, really fight back. But before she can get too excited, she has to get her strength back. She needs to get more water. We don't want to relive the first couple days again. And she pretty much, lost all the weight that she had gained while she was eating all that food in the capital. And she also needs to figure out, which leaves can be used to draw out the Tracker Jacker poison. She soon then shoots a rabbit, gets water, cleans herself off in the pond, treats her burns and rebraids her hair. Keeps walking, shoots another bird, builds a small fire to cook her kills. And suddenly she hears a twig snap. Quickly she readies her bow, but she doesn't see anyone. But then quickly realizes who she is and speaks before she can stop herself. She says, they're not the only ones who can form alliances. And just like that, we have the best alliance ever. Rue has the leaves to treat Katniss' stings. Katniss gives her some of the cream for the burn on Rue's arms. And this whole exchange is just so cute, so I'm just going to read it. So it starts on page 201, starts with Rue asking, you weren't joking about wanting me for an ally, she asks. No, I meant it, I say. I can almost hear Haymitch groaning as I team up with this wispy child. But I want her, because she's a survivor, and I trust her. And why not admit it? She reminds me of Prim. Okay, she says, and holds out her hand. We shake. It's a deal. Of course, this kind of deal can only be temporary, but neither of us mentions that. So they sit down. They eat the meat Katniss caught, and Rue recognizes the bird she caught earlier. It's a grosling. A flock sometimes wanders into the orchards back in her home, and when they do, they would get a good lunch. Then Rue has this one line that just makes me really sad. She's excited because she's never had a whole leg of meat to herself, because that is so depressing. She is currently eating better now in the arena, where everything is trying to kill her, than back home. Then they chat for a bit, and they get to learn more about each other's districts, and this is one of my favorite parts of the series. It's just the world building and getting to know how the capital in each district operates. And it makes sense that the culture in each district would be different from each other since they're all kept so isolated from one another. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the only time anyone from different districts are allowed to interact with each other is the Hunger Games. The tributes obviously interact when they're in the arena, killing each other, and so do the victors since they're all mentors, and we know Haymitch is friends with some of them. And also during these conversations that Katniss and Rue have about their homes, she's pretty sure that the game makers will edit this part out from the broadcast since, gotta keep the districts ignorant of each other, and we know from the stunt that Sejanus pulled in Ballad that the Capitol can edit parts out of the broadcast. Anyway, so Katniss learns that the citizens in District 11 don't get to eat the food that they grow like they always assumed. No, instead because if you do eat any of the crops, you'll get whipped in front of everyone, and that the mayor is strict about it. So public whippings in District 12 are rare. Katniss and Gale could technically be whipped or worse daily for their hunting and poaching, but most officials are their customers, so they get away with it. And Mayor Undersea doesn't have a taste for violence, unlike the asshole mayor in Ballad. Also, the people in 12 don't get to keep any of the coal that they mine. Oh no, they have to pay for it because capitalism sucks. The one time that the people in 11 are given extra food is during harvest, but that's only so they can, keep going and work more, because the capital won't feed its citizens unless it's useful to them. Then Katniss and Rue lay out and organize their food. Rue's gathered a bunch of nuts and berries that she shared with Katniss. Rue also has a small water skin, a homemade slingshot, and an extra pair of socks that she puts on her hands at night to sleep to help keep her warm. And has a small sharp shard of rock. Try saying that 5 times fast. Small sharp shard. Yeah. Okay, Rue has a small sharp shard rock that she uses as a knife. We learned that when the gong sounded, Rue did grab a couple things like the water skin at the cornucopia, but had to get out of there fast, obviously. Then when going through Katniss' stuff, Rue tells her what the glasses are for. They're basically night vision goggles, which is really cool. Rue recognizes them because she sometimes uses them at home when they work in the fields at night, but they're obviously not allowed to keep them. And the Peacekeepers once killed a kid who tried to keep them one time. Yikes. And according to Rue, the boy who took the glasses, Martin, was harmless and, quote-unquote, wasn't right in the head and acted like a 3-year-old. So, just another detail to highlight how awful Panem treats its citizens. Because Martin clearly has some sort of learning disability, or we can assume that he's somewhere on the autism spectrum, but we never meet Martin, and we can't say for sure, and I'm not an expert, this is just my best guess. But either way, it still sucks for Martin, because there is clearly no education or support for the neurodivergent members of the district. They just have to exist and survive like everyone else, and it's really sad. But compared to District 11, 12 almost sounds like a safe haven, so I guess there's an advantage to living in the district that is the most ignored. Also, we learn a little bit about Greasy Say. She apparently has grandkids, one granddaughter specifically who acts similar to Martin, but she's generally liked by people in the Hob and treated as a sort of pet, so Lucy eventually had kids apparently, or she adopted them. By the way, if you're new here, I subscribe to the theory that Greasy Say is Lucy Gray because it's a fun theory and I desperately want Lucy Gray to still be alive. And of all those theories I've heard about her, this to me is the most realistic thing that would have happened had she lived. Anyway, Katniss and Rue pack up and they head upstream and then they get ready for bed. They share the sleeping bag since there's room for both of them, and it's so cute. Katniss can't help but just be a good big sister, and it makes everything that happens later even more sad and tragic. Anyway, that night, when the anthem plays, no deaths are reported, so Katniss asks Rue if anyone else has died since she was out for a couple days, but so far it's only Glimmer and the girl from 4, who we already knew about. By the way, during this conversation, Katniss is whispering to Rue since she wants to keep this next part of the conversation as private as possible, and the anthem playing will help cover what they're saying. So Katniss tells Rue about Peeta possibly saving her life, but isn't sure because Tracker Venom. Rue tells her that Peeta is no longer with the career, so perhaps Peeta really did save Katniss and had to run away after he did so. And this, of course, makes Katniss uncomfortable because, once again, she's in his debt and she can't pay him back. She tells Rue that if he did, it's probably just part of the act, that him loving her was just something he worked out with their mentor, but Rue doesn't think it's an act. Katniss brushes off the comment, probably because she sees Rue as, more naive little girl like Prim who doesn't have a strong bullshit detector. Except kids are often better judges of character than adults are, and Rue is 100% correct. Anyway, Katniss forcefully moves on from the conversation by trying out the night vision glasses. And I have nothing else to say about the chapter other than to read the last part of it because it gets us excited for what's going to happen next. So it starts with Katniss saying, "I wonder who else got a pair of these, I say. The careers have 2 pairs, but they've got everything down by the lake," Rue says. "And they're so strong. We're strong too, I say, just in a different way." "You are. You can shoot," she says. "What can I do?" "You can feed yourself, can they?" I ask. "They don't need to. They have all those supplies," Rue says. "Say they didn't. Say the supplies were gone. How long would they last?" I say. "I mean, it's the Hunger Games, right?" "But Katniss, they're not hungry," says Rue. "No, they're not. That's the problem," I agree. And for the first time, I have a plan that isn't motivated by the need for flight and evasion. An offensive plan. I think we're going to have to fix that, Rue. So with that being said, we've come to the end of this chapter and the end of the episode. We'll have to wait and see what they do. Well, I mean, I know what happens. This is a reread podcast, but we'll talk about it. You guys know what I mean. I'm just unnecessarily over-explaining things again. Anyway, next time we will be talking about chapters 16 to 18, and we will be wrapping up part 2 already. And just like how I was when Sejanus met his tragic fate, I will be very emotional next episode, so be prepared. Thank you guys so much for listening. It really means a lot. Don't forget to follow, subscribe so you get notified for future episodes. The Instagram at bookishbabbles_podcast. It's in the show notes. You know the drill. But yeah, thank you again. I hope you have a great day / night whenever you're listening, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!